In this presentation, we will discuss employer responsibilities and processes related to payroll. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info. One of the things that the employer will need to do, and will need to do whether they are a corporation or a partnership or even a sole proprietor, is to get an employer identification number from the IRS, that done with the Form SS4. So this is going to be just a reporting type of document that we will need to have. We'll need to use this employer identification number when we process our tax documentation. And of course, any type of regulation body is going to know us from a number. And in terms of processing payroll, for the federal payroll, we need to have a separate number, that being the employer identification number. Now, this number is going to be important because it's more standardized in terms of just employment, meaning any type of organization can get an EIN number, even if we're a sole proprietor, a partnership, or a corporation. So the corporation, as we know, is a separate legal entity, and it's going to have its own corporate number when reporting income taxes. But the formats of a company, such as a partnership, typically have different types of reporting requirements in terms of the number when reporting income taxes. And a sole proprietor possibly could be in a situation where they're using a social security number, so we have a different type of format for reporting on a number basis to the IRS for income taxes. So the employer identification number can be used then to give the IRS more of a standardized process when we're talking about payroll, no matter the type of entity that we will be using. The employer identification number can also be useful for sole proprietors if they want to process 1099 type forms and not have to use their social security number in certain types of documentation as well. So even if we don't have any employees, in essence, if we're a sole proprietor, we're kind of our own employee in some ways, and we may want to have some other number representing our business other than social security number, and that could be the employer identification number. The process for applying for the SS4 is fairly straightforward. You can do it online, an online application as well, or go to irs.gov, and if you go to forms and go to the SS4, you'll find the application form, and you can just go through the steps for the application form. It's a one-page form, pretty quick form to fill out and get going. Notice some of the key components will be the type of entity here, where we have the sole proprietor, the partnership, the corporation. So we have all the different types of entities that we can have here applying for employer identification number using the same form. So that's part of the purpose here. And then we've got also the reason for applying. Is it a new business, or did we have new hires possibly that are taking place, meaning we're starting to have employees and therefore need an employer identification number. Once we have that, then we're going to report that on our federal forms, that being the 940, the 941. Payroll processes could change and differ when we're talking about large companies and small companies. Obviously, the larger a company is, the more complexities we have, the more legislative requirements we typically have. We oftentimes have to meet more legal requirements, and we need more internal controls to safeguard ourselves as our company grows. One problem with large companies is we obviously have more employees, we have more time to track, and we want to have some system that can possibly be more electronic and serve as having more accountability, even if we don't have the direct supervision as easily to track more people. So we're going to have probably some electronic type of devices to clock in and clock out within larger companies, devices that employees can use to log in and log out. Those methods are going to need some type of good security system, including secure login, so that we can make sure and safeguard against the proper login and logging out. We can safeguard against, we might have some type of requirements to make sure that the person logging in is the actual individual, so other people can't log in for one individual and start their time clocks. We might have some individual identification methods We could try to limit the logins by location as well, so make sure that it's not an online login. We can try to limit the login to a specific location. We might have the time clocks that have to be punched in at a specific location. When we're talking about people in different locations, we could clearly have some type of online type process as well for people to log in over the web, to have the login access and report their time, and then supervisors be able to collect that time over a web-based system. As we do that, we want to make sure we run into problems with cybersecurity to make sure that all of our information is secure as we're processing the payroll information. We want to have more complexity in terms of the database system to limit the types of people that have access to different things, to be able to separate duties between individuals who are logging in and approving time and recording time in the payroll process. Therefore, to have that separation of duties, we will typically have multiple types of divisions within payroll. As the payroll department gets larger, as we have different payroll, we're going to have different divisions and different segmentations that you will have access to within the payroll system to allow for the separation of duty, to allow to reduce the likelihood of fraud or theft. Now, in order to deal with this type of complexity, payroll will often be outsourced. So payroll is becoming more and more something that many companies will specialize on, companies like ADP or Paychex. These are just going to be a few type of companies that will specialize typically in just payroll, and they'll provide a lot of these types of resources. Now, there's a lot of pros and cons to outsourcing or insourcing or doing your payroll within house or outside. One of the pros of outsourcing to a third party like ADP or Paychex is that they specialize in payroll, and therefore they have the knowledge needed in order to process payroll, and typically have, hopefully, the ability to keep up to date with new laws and regulations, as well as dealing with places in different parts of the country, different parts of the world. Some things we need to be careful of course, is that because we have ADP and Paychex processing, we still need to put it into our accounting records in some way or another. And so and that could differ, the way we do that could differ depending on what we want to set up, how we're going to set this thing up. So in some way or another, the outside individual is going to have to get that information and we're going to have to integrate that into our system so that our financial statements represent and reflect what has been recorded by payroll and Paychex. The other problem, of course, is that it is bringing in an outside source that we are becoming dependent on. We're dependent on payroll and Paychex in order to process a key component rather than having the full control over that processing in-house. For more accounting information and accounting courses, visit our website at accountinginstruction.info.